Hello and welcome to our continued live stream discussions of Yellowjackets. I say that with a wink and a nudge because we've done two of them, but we did two of them. So, we did do two of them. So at least there's that. But we are back. We are going to discuss Yellowjackets and the season finale. So as it says, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, you don't want to be spoiled. So, go watch it, come back and join us. Or if you don't, follow along, or if you don't care about spoilers, then please join us for this because it is a Wild Women of Podcasting episode. I'm so excited. We haven't had a Wild Women of Podcasting in a while. Just the three of us. Instead of just the two of us. So I'm going to bring on my fellow Wild Women of Podcasting. First up, from Bed Wetterby Head, where they probably will never be playing with these characters because of Meg. Who knows? Maybe they will. Carla.
Hello. Your assessment could not be more accurate because this is not a Meg-friendly show.
I know. I'm like, that's never going to happen.
Much as I wish that it would, I sincerely doubt it.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, darn. It'll never happen. But I don't think Jen has ever talked about Yellowjackets on my streaming bubble yet. She's shaking her head no. But the third member of the Wild Women of Podcasting, and maybe she'll have the Wild Women of Podcasting on to talk about Yellowjackets at some point. Please welcome Jen. Hi, who's muted.
So it's been a while.
That's hilarious. Come here.
Present.
We could have just been really mean and just let you just keep going.
Who knows how long I would have gone to.
You'd be like, why is no one responding to me?
Look, I'm making really good points. I'm really funny right now.
Well, welcome, Jen. I'm so glad to have you both on. I still, I don't know if I've told listeners before or viewers before that I still, and I will probably never delete it from my calendar. Every Thursday night, it comes up, Dexter live tweet, and then live stream. It comes up on my calendar every Thursday, 7:00 Mountain Standard Time. Get those notifications, and I cry a little inside. I'm like, I almost want them to bring, I'm almost excited for the Dexter stuff just for that. Just kidding. I'm not going to make us go through that. I saw the looks. Like, we're not doing that. No, I don't want any more squirrel killing slander on my show.
Be so much.
Oh, Aaron. If only you had been right.
I was right. There still has not been the squirrel killing.
That we know of explicitly.
Mm-hmm. There's probably some behind the scenes deleted scenes. Anyway,
before we get into an argument and I kick both of them off, speaking of killing, let's get into Yellowjackets. Oh, I almost said speaking of hungry, but we weren't talking about food, so I haven't had dinner yet. So this may quench that, though, or not quench that. What's that when you stifle that? I don't know.
Sure.
Anyway,
that's great.
So we'll go overall, and then we're going to dive mainly into the last two episodes, but especially the last episode. But I want to know, on a scale of 1 to 5 Queen of Hearts cards, Carla, is that the most clever? I don't know. Or no, 1 to 5 poisoned tea.
No.
1 to 5 hot cocoa cups.
Yes. No, we'll go to the 1 to 5 Queen of Hearts. How many Queen of Hearts are you giving Yellowjackets season 2 overall?
Overall, I'm giving it 4.2.
4.2. Whoa.
Yes, 4.2. Because I think especially on rewatch, I really liked a lot. I liked it a lot more than I did going through the first time. Like on rewatch, there's so much that gels together better than it did piece by piece.
4.2. Okay. And then Jen, how many Queen of Hearts?
I'll go ahead and just do a full 4. I really enjoyed this season. I haven't been able to do a full rewatch of either season 1 or 2, but I most definitely will, because this show is wild and it's bananas, and it's like you're kind of sitting there, you're watching it, you're tense, you know something bonkers is going to happen, and then it happens and it's nothing at all like you're expecting. Like I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, like there's so much, like in the finale, there's so much shit going on right now. There's so many people around. Something terrible is going to happen. And then I did not anticipate the terrible things that happened. So I'm just kind of like, so a lot of times the episodes end and I'm just like gobsmacked. I'm just like, oh my God. Or I just like gasp really loud. It's been a fun ride. I love this show so much.
Yeah, not to do the brain twin thing right away, but I am with Jen, and I give it 4 Queen of Hearts as well. Everybody knows that listens should know this is my favorite show on television. And I love the show so much because of how many unique, different women we are seeing on screen that I really honestly cannot think of another show or movie or anything where we have been presented with so many very intricate and complex female characters before. I just can't. And it's just it's so sad to me how much of a blessing it is. And that's why I wish everybody could watch it, but it's also not for everybody. But yeah, so I was going to
Definitely not people named Meg.
Yeah, no.
Who co-host Better Behead.
I know. I was like, that'll never happen. So I was going to try and do an average. So 12.2 divided by 3 is probably just going to give me 4.2. No, 4.06666667.
Ooh, the sixes. It's here. It's with us now. It followed us.
God. It followed us back. So the reason I said we should focus on the last 2 episodes, I know we'll definitely, just so everybody knows, we are going to be doing an actual podcast episode talking about Yellowjackets, both seasons 1 and 2. And so we'll go a lot more in depth into like a lot more of the stuff that happened during this season. But I think what happened in episode, how many episodes were there this season? I can't remember, but
9.
Thank you. In episode 8 and 9, really, I think are setting up whatever's going to happen in the 3rd season. And so, of course, well, you know what? Actually, we should talk about the baby because we didn't talk about the baby. So that's what we're going to first talk about, because everybody was wondering what was going to happen with Shauna's baby, because we knew it wasn't her daughter because the age doesn't match. And we've never found out. And everybody's biggest fear, of course, was they were all going to eat the baby. That's what everybody kept saying. And so the baby, it's basically a stillborn, is what you find out. But it's an interesting episode because Shauna and the grief, and how you really see this is the event that turned Shauna into who Shauna is today, I think, more than the plane crash, more than anything else. So Carla, what did you think about the baby storyline? I know what they did with that.
It was so sad. It was so heartbreaking because, this was, I think a lot of them were looking forward to having the baby, even though, babies take a lot of resources. They take a lot of attention, and, they're starving themselves. And it's like, how are we going to feed this new mouth and all of that? But I think that they were still excited to have the baby around because, a baby is hope. It's new beginnings. It's a lot of things it's a lot to put in a baby, by the way. But in a lot of ways, that's what a lot of people associate with the baby. And with all of the emphasis that Lottie put on how the baby's going to save them and all of this, it it's heartbreaking under any circumstance, but when they are so deprived of any light and hope in their everyday lives, it's got to be that much harder. And for Shauna, who has just lost her best friend, you know, it's just so much to take. And then coming to grips with what happened after having um, that imagining of her baby being alive and, having time to bond with him and all of that. And to come out of that and realize that it was just in her mind, that all it was just a hallucination and that the baby never made it at all. And then you also have the fact that she saw in this hallucination, she saw all of these people eating the baby. That it shows you that she's still dealing with the trauma of them having eaten Jackie, that she still hasn't really processed it. And just like, how do you process any of that at all, let alone at such a difficult time when you're about to give birth and there's this huge storm and everybody's, trapped. Um, and I like the way that they handled it, because it would have been awful if the baby had lived and then died. It would have been awful if the baby had lived and then they like actually ate the baby. Like, there were so many ways in which this could have gone that would have been just absolutely awful to witness. And I think that this was the, I guess, kindest way to do it. And also, aside from that, there's so much stillbirth, miscarriage. It's such a taboo topic that, unfortunately, a lot of people have to go through in real life, and to never see that represented is kind of cruel, because it's like pretending that it doesn't happen doesn't make it not happen. It doesn't negate the heartbreak that so many people go through when they lose a baby um, through stillbirth. So, in its own way, uh, it's good that it was there. It does make you question, like, why do it at all? Like, what's the point at all? I mean, I know that the point really ends up being like the whole catharsis of Lottie's idea that it's a sacrifice to the wilderness, and the wilderness provided because of that. But still, like, it's just so very. It brings up so many emotions. It's a lot to deal with and to grapple with, and it's I don't know, it's just fascinating. It's a fascinating bit of storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Jen, what did you think about how they handled the baby?
All right. So first of all, when you were getting ready to ask Carla that question, inside I'm just like, it was terrible and great, and I loved it so much. And then Carla's like, it was so sad, and I'm just like, oh, wrong takeaway.
I mean, my words were just like
takeaway.
like a 5,000-word essay of exactly what you just said. So it's like potato, because there's only one right way to say potato.
It's true. It's potato. But oh my God. So yeah, all those things Carla said, yes, it was sad, but it was, so, yeah, just kind of dreading this moment. It was going to happen. You knew it was coming. And then the way that it all went down, like with the hallucination or dream, because, when they're in the wilderness, are they hallucinating or is it a dream? I don't know. I don't trust anything that's happening there. But she goes through, the trying to get the baby to latch and everything and having this bonding moment. And you're just kind of like, you're already kind of nervous and scared, because you're just like, it's still a baby. They still have a long way to go. We assume it didn't make it. And then, she's like, it's just, us against the world. And I was like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. Like, she finally is ready to accept the role of being the mother, of being this baby's mom. And then she walks out of the room and they're all eating the baby. And I sat up and I was like, no, they fucking didn't. And then it was like almost immediately revealed as a dream. And I was like, okay, they did that on purpose because they knew everyone was going to be like, they're going to eat the baby. They're going to eat the baby. So they're just like, see, they ate the baby. Psych. And, but it still sucked. And so that was like, it was devastating, but very relieving at the same time. But then again, we come back to devastating when Misty's like, the baby didn't make it and everything. And then Shauna's reaction to all of that. And that this dream / hallucination was so real. And she couldn't let go of that for a while. And she truly believed that had happened. And that was, oh my God, that was so freaking heartbreaking. And I have to say, I think Shauna is my favorite character, I think, right now, mostly adult Shauna, but young Shauna, especially in this season, was phenomenal. And then like the rage that she takes out on Lottie and just all these emotions. Cause like in season 1, I feel like we didn't get a whole hell of a lot out of young Shauna, not to this level. So it was kind of cool to see, not just because of the talent of the actress, but like, I think Carla's absolutely right. This is what turns Shauna into who she is now, or has a big part in that. So I really liked, it was just so fucking good. And just, I love terrible things that just break my heart and rip me to shreds. And it did all of those things. So I love it so much. Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was, as you said, Carla, it was the kindest way to do this because you knew the baby wasn't going to live. And if we had to see like a baby starving and watching that would have been, I think, way too much. It's funny because I knew they didn't, I knew when they were showing them eating the baby, I'm like, because I accidentally stumbled across a spoiler before I'd watched it. And the spoiler said what happened to the baby was worse than if they had eaten the baby. And I'm like, how was that worse than if they had, I know everybody's like, how are you? They're like, really seriously? How is that worse than them eating the baby?
Like, let's consider this person's like, entire moral compass and
I know.
recalibrate it.
Yeah.
How could that be? And so then when I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? Because I'm like, oh, everything's like normal. I'm like, what are they talking about? What is the worst thing? And I'm like, you mean is Lottie going to breastfeed this baby because of that scene? And that's what I was like, is that? And I'm like, that's still not worse than eating a baby. And then when they had the fantasy, I'm like, what the hell is going when she thinks they're eating the baby? And then when it cut to what really happened, and I'm like, that is not worse than, it's tragic, but that is not worse than eating a baby. I mean, come on. Whoever said that? You don't, that's not, what in the world are you talking about?
I don't even have to address this.
I'm like, seriously? But luckily everybody that responded was like, are you kidding me? What are you talking about?
Thank God.
Like, seriously.
I'm like, what is going to happen that's worse than eating a baby?
Some people should not be allowed internet access.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I'm like, okay. But the performance by Sophie Nalisi, who hopefully I'm pronouncing your last name correct, was so amazing. I think all of the acting in this show is out of this world, but she was so good because just her keep saying, no, I hear my baby. Don't you hear him? Don't you hear him? Don't you hear him? And the fact of like everybody, like she didn't want any comfort, no comfort from anyone. And you can see how this event and how, when she says later, when she's burying him and she's out there and saying, it's us, it's you and me against the world. And her still thinking that. And then later when you see adult Shauna, and Melanie Linsky, of course, is always fantastic anyway, and you see her talking about how she's basically always lived with this fear that her daughter was going to die. And so she never got close to her daughter because of that. And then even when you see, which I loved the scene with Jeff and their daughter, because I think it's one of the only times you really saw, like, I mean, Jeff is kind of a dweeb, but that scene with Jeff and his daughter when he explains to her, this is what your mother has been through in her life. I really loved that because I don't know, it felt like, oh, Jeff really does love Shauna. There really is this love for Shauna that he has, and he understands on some little tiny level. There's a part of him that understands that she went through so much great trauma. And when he explains that and doesn't make it, he does say we lost a baby, but he doesn't make it about himself. He makes it about her because it is her trauma. I don't know why that makes me want to cry, but I just thought that was so, um, I don't know, it was so beautiful to see. And I think because this isn't, like you said, Carla, this stuff isn't talked about that much. And especially men never really talk about this stuff that you see. And so to have a man talking about that in such a, never blaming her, never in a like, more in like, your mom has suffered a great loss, and you have, and giving your mom grace. And the fact that you're like, okay, this is why Jeff is still with her. This is why Jeff is with her. You could literally see that's why their relationship is what it is. And the fact that even though you've thought this whole time Jeff is just this dweeby dude who doesn't understand that that's not a book club, even though you still see, I will never get over that.
The funniest,
Man,
funniest thing ever.
like the saying goes, bless his heart.
I know. So even though he's still that, there was this different side to him that you saw there. And so then I think if you hadn't had that scene, I don't think them going to Lottie's compound place would have had as much of an impact. And you wouldn't have, and you can see how Jeff is like, well, we're gonna leave we're gonna run away. And the fact that the daughter's like, well, we can't let mom go to jail now. And it was like this moment of, now the daughter is understanding the mom as well. And Shauna doesn't know this yet, of course, but still, it was nice to see, because you could see that if it happens, there might be a road to healing there for the family. And so I really appreciated all the scenes that revolved around that. I appreciated the scene with the young Shauna, all of those. And I really appreciated the scene with the present day adult Shauna discussing how she always is worried her daughter is going to die. And that's why she's so closed off. And then I really appreciated Jeff telling his daughter, this is, your mom has experienced trauma, and explaining what that really meant and what that really looked like. And I don't know if he knows all the trauma she experienced. I don't know if he knows about all that stuff. I have a feeling he doesn't, but just the fact that he knows that stuff, and you can see where that relationship really came from. Because honestly, part of me was like, why are these two still together? If this baby died, why would they be together when she comes back? It just, in my mind, wasn't making sense. And I think that kind of helped click it all together. And the scene when young Shauna is beating Lottie, like almost kills her, that was so hard to watch. I was like, oh my gosh, is she ever going to stop?
Brutal.
And the fact that everybody stood there and was watching this, and that was like, and that I think is the pivotal moment that turns everything, and then turns it into where they're going to start choosing people to eat, really, is where that ends up coming to. So Lottie, who really wasn't, I mean, the younger Lottie was in the first season, but the adult Lottie came in this season, of course. So that whole thing with Lottie, and Lottie telling Misty, don't let my body go to waste. And then them ending up deciding to choose based on whoever gets the Queen of Hearts. Carla, what do you, it's so hard to say. What do you think about them deciding to be cannibals?
Right? It's like, no, let's just do this. Well, for one thing, it's a little bit disjointed the way that they show that happening, because
I
there's
agree.
they never show a conversation. They never show anybody being like, no, but oh no. It's just like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. And I personally disagree with the idea of it being that the catalyst for this was the beating. I think the catalyst was Misty relaying information that in a way that she wanted it to be relayed, because she was the one person going between Lottie and the group. And Lottie tells her, don't let my body go to waste. And Missy takes that, and in her, because this is a very Missy thing, she thinks she's the only one who has the answers. And she just thinks that, people just need a little convincing or a little bit of trickery to get there. So I think Missy had already made up her mind that this was the only way to go about it. Lottie's words, set that off. And then she goes to the group and says, hey, so listen, we got to feed somehow, but we also want to keep Lottie alive. It can't be Lottie who dies because she's our leader. So what do you guys want to do about this?
I meant more like, because if she hadn't, I didn't explain it well, but if she hadn't been beaten up and hadn't had all that stuff, then none of this would have happened. That part.
Okay.
I don't know if that would have happened. The queen of,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then, her going back to Lottie and saying that, okay, well, we did what you wanted. And Lottie saying, whoa, that is not what I said. But Misty insisting, look, these were your words. We did this. It's done. We got to eat. So let's just, just suck it up and do it. And again, that's Misty putting this idea into people's head and manipulating things so that there's no other alternative. Like there's nothing to be done about it now. And okay, and again, like I'm missing the in-between part of her holding Natalie back from rescuing Kavi, which, Natalie is the person that she admires most in the group. They were not friends. No matter what Misty thinks, they were not friends. Natalie did not want to be friends with Misty, but Misty's obsession with Natalie saved Natalie that time. So she kind of decided Kavi's fate. It wasn't a mystical it's Misty deciding that she can't lose Natalie that causes them to let Kavi, succumb to hypothermia. So like, and then it makes sense that, they've already consumed Jackie and that went okay. It's like the first time is so shocking and awful, and you think that you are never going to be this person and you never want to be this person. And the second time it's more like the shock kind of wears off, and they're so hungry, they're starving, they've gone through so much at this point, and you see them sitting around listless, like they just don't even have the energy to do anything really. So they don't know how much longer winter's going to be, how much harsher it's going to get or not. They don't know anything at this point. And all that it comes down to is survival. But that switch from opportunistic consumption to actually hunting each other is mind-blowing, and it's devastating, because these are people who care about each other and who, like, even if you're at odds with your high school teammates, you're still teammates and you still know each other. After all of this time living together in such close quarters, they're familiar with each other to the point where they're a family of sorts. And to decide that we're okay with this, it's an act of huge desperation. I don't think that they would have done this if they had any hope of being rescued. If this had happened, if this were something like if they were still trapped in the spring or summer when there's more game out there to feed on, I don't think that they would have done this. And I don't know if it doesn't preclude them from doing it next spring and next summer now that they've done it, but it wouldn't have happened if they had like a store of food that they could go to. But yeah, like I would have liked to see more of, that conversation, instead of they just jumped right to, okay, here's a deck of cards, let's just pick. Like, whoa, there.
I literally thought I missed something. I was like, I must have
Same.
missed a scene, and then I was like, "Oh, wait, I didn't." And then I was like, "Is this a hallucination? Is this Lottie streaming this?"
See?
Because then I
Can't
thought
trust
that.
anything.
Yeah,
I
because I was like,
know.
because why did they all of a sudden, because there was no conversation. It was just Lottie said this, and then all of a sudden they're drawing cards. I'm like, "What the hell is going on?"
See, but
Right.
maybe that's kind of the point where they're all kind of becoming more in tune with the wilderness and maybe a little bit of each other and this kind of a little bit more of like extreme, I guess. I don't want to use the word extreme. It's not the what I'm looking for, but like this level of like needing to survive. And I mean, they've already given offerings to like the skull, the whatever, and on the altar or on the altar, on the mantle, fireplace mantle. So for me, it's like, I guess like a conversation or something would have been nice, but for me, it kind of it made sense where I was like, y'all are losing your fucking minds, really is what I was like. You guys are uh cuckoo pants. And this is just what like just kind of just really leaning into that whole like we're gonna listen to the wilderness hears us, all that kind of stuff. So for me, it felt like maybe a maybe a big next step, but like it made sense to me. And then, but the way that they just straight up turned feral
Oh
and
my
like
gosh, I know.
that part, it was like they were looking forward to that. They needed to like
They
run
were
and like
excited,
they
yeah.
were so excited. And it's like, look, I understand if you have to, because like at first they're because yeah, they because Natalie was like, if you're Tashana, like if you're gonna do it, you're gonna have to face me to do it. So I understand how that would be difficult, but you don't just go all excited, wild women it and out in the woods and just hooting and hollering like just it did not look like the first time they did that, which
Right.
was kind of what didn't sit well like the best with me. I was just like, you guys were way too into doing all of that. And then so then in the finale, young Lottie talks about how she can no longer hear the wilderness. The wilderness has chosen a new leader, and that leader is Natalie. And then that all comes full circle with the adult versions. But clearly, Misty has a big role because, like Carla said, Misty is opportunistic. And I think like and shifty like that. And I think like the wilderness knew that and knew Misty was gonna pull some shit. I don't know. I because
The
seriously,
wilderness
like,
was using Misty.
well, because she all of a sudden
Yeah.
does. You're right. She saves Natalie, her best friend, and then she's also the one that's responsible for Natalie's death, the adult Natalie.
Mhm.
So really, the wilderness did use her to maybe bring Natalie to the forefront, young Natalie as the leader, and then now the wilderness is done with Natalie like it was done with young Lottie, and they needed a sacrifice, and it just all happened to work out. Like Misty's too good of a pawn for the wilderness. Pawn, not pond.
She's into the pond.
Pawn. I don't know. That's something that just kind of came to me because I really want to rewatch both seasons because I feel like I'm going to get so much more and like draw these lines and come up with theories that maybe don't make a whole lot of sense, but they're fun anyways. Because this show it really opens the door for that. And I think that's
Yeah.
what makes this show part of what makes this show so much fun for as
I
terrible as
agree.
it is.
No, it's true
Oh,
because
I
like
agree.
and I mentioned to Aaron last time that it reminds me of the best times in the X-Files fandom is when it leaves you talking about it and theorizing and coming up with all of these, you know, ideas of like what is happening and why is it happening? Did you catch this? Did you catch that?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you want to go back and rewatch it precisely because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, and with the whole thing with them, the way they were chasing Natalie, which I don't know if Jen knows this because I don't think Jen was on there when I said Natalie is my favorite character, so I'm not yet ready to talk about what happened to Natalie because I'm trying to process all of that. But so when they're going after Natalie and they're doing it with such fervor and such like joy. Like there's not just the joy of eating there, there's the joy of activity and doing something. But I think what it is they have been feeling so out of control. They have no control over everything, and all of a sudden they have control over something. They're going to be able to overpower something, and they're going to be able to eat. They're going to be able to have sustenance for a minute, and they might be able to survive another couple of days. And but who surprised me the most in all of that with the running after Natalie was Van. Her the look on her face and how completely into it she seemed to be really kind of surprised me because I didn't expect that as much from her. I think, I don't know, there was something in the look in her eyes, and I'm like, but the thing is we've never been in this situation, of course, and I never want to be. And I do think it is, as weird as that sounds, I think it, because it's happened in real life, I think it is logical that you do get to that point where you need food and people do end up eating each other. It's not like something that has never happened before, but it was the joy and the elation of the hunt and not just the food. Because then once the food was there and once it was Javi and once they actually had to do the cutting up his body and doing all of that, there was joy, but there was also a deep sadness there too that you did see.
Yes.
So it was like they came back to themselves. I don't know if that makes sense, but like they came back.
Well, it makes sense because it's one thing to pick up, spears or whatever, and to run after somebody and to want to kill them, to have like that adrenaline rushing through you of like, finally I have something to do. I have a purpose again, like I have a mission instead of just sitting around thinking of how much I would like to not be here. I would like to eat. So it's one thing to have that adrenaline fueled rush, but it's a whole other thing dealing with the consequences of it. And I think for me, it just really made sense that Van went in that direction because since the beginning of the season, she has been losing hope steadily and losing a bit of her own humanity in that. She becomes really nihilistic from earlier on. There's a particular point where she's talking to Ty and she says something that surprises Ty, which is a very like something that she doesn't expect Van to say because Van is more hopeful and optimistic and, let's look at things from the positive side. But she starts, falling deeper and deeper into this despair and clinging more and more to Lottie. So when she thinks that this is what Lottie wants, especially with that thought in mind, it's like, okay, well, then we have to do this. This is what the wilderness wants. And she is falling into this comfort of the idea that it's not them. We're not bad people. We're just doing what the wilderness wants. It's an outside force. It is an inevitable force. All we can do is satisfy it and it'll save us. So the fact that, she wasn't the one to get the card. So there's that, what she talks to Travis about, I'm happy to be alive. There's also a relief that comes from having survived the accident, having survived this long, having survived the draw, and having survived, the consequences of the chase. So it really made sense to me that she would have that reaction, given what we've seen of her in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it made sense to me as well, Van's kind of reaction. And then I loved seeing like adult Van's reaction to the first time seeing adult Lottie. There was like a fear in her eyes. Like she knew she had to keep her distance from this other person. Otherwise she could get sucked back into whatever could possibly happen. And she doesn't, by the end of the season and everything. So that's nice. But I was really worried for adult Van kind of at the beginning of the season and when she first sees Lottie. Cause it's like, I was like, uh-oh, she's gonna, it's kind of like seeing an old flame, you know, like a one that got away kind of thing, where she's there was a fear, but also a little bit maybe excitement to see her.
Yeah.
But then at the end, she's like, you know, Lottie's like this because of us. And she does say there's no it, there was no wilderness. It was us. Oh no, I'm sorry. Shauna said those things.
Yeah.
But Van did say that Lottie is the way she is because of them. And basically everything that they had gone through. So kind of putting that ownership back on them versus really fully the wilderness, the it.
But the thing with that is that it's still Van casting the responsibility on something else.
That's true.
You know, it's, but because I have a theory about Van. My theory is that, you know, she is okay with, because initially she said that she was going to stay in her truck. She's like, I'm not coming out there. Absolutely not. My thinking, though, is that the reason that she does eventually go out there and participates in all of this and becomes so invested in the hunt and talks Ty down from having the psych team come out and help Lottie, is that she starts to get hope. She starts to see Lottie as a promise, or Charlotte as a promise as opposed to a liability, because she had so much faith in Lottie when they were younger. Now, Van is coming into this as somebody with terminal cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And as we have seen in previous episodes, Lottie attributes miracles to sacrificing something to it, right? So in my mind, she's kind of hoping that if they do offer sacrifice, maybe she will be saved. And I wouldn't be surprised if in season 3, we see Van go into remission out of nowhere.
See, and I was thinking
Oh,
that
see,
was
I
going
didn't
to
think about that
happen.
at all.
See, I was thinking that was, I never thought that it was that Van was starting to think like, well, maybe it worked in the past. But I was kind of confused why all of a sudden she was like, I don't want to call the psych team. This isn't right. I just thought she was like, you know, using her past mental illness as a reason to like stop her, lock her up or whatever wasn't right. I thought it was just like the morality of that. But no, I think you're right, Carl. I think she started to come to this idea, that little bit of hope of it's worked before. So, interesting.
Yeah, and again, that desperation, you
Mhm.
know?
Yep.
That's interesting because I see it the exact opposite. I see that she has given up and doesn't have any hope, and she's like, "I'm going to die, but I'm not. But I don't want. I don't think she believes in Lottie at all anymore. But I think what she believes happened is I don't think she believes in the wilderness. I don't think she believes that. I think it was she believes they all suffered this almost group psychosis together, and because of that she wasn't able to live a lot of her life the way she wanted to, and then now she has this terminal cancer, so it's like she's at that precipice of like, no, I don't want to do any more of this quote unquote crazy shit anymore because I'm going to be dying, and I'd rather just be more peaceful, and I don't want to bring down hell on Lottie. To me it was more, she was like, we all had a psychosis, and I don't want to bring that hell down on somebody. And I think she's terrified of Lottie. I don't think to me, she's completely afraid of her. I was more thinking the only thing I would think she would do is try to kill Lottie in defense at a point. But it just, actually, I thought a lot of them were going to try and kill Lottie. That's what I actually thought was going to happen. I thought they were going to kill Lottie in some way or do some kind of thing before the whole drawing of the cards. That's what I thought was going to happen. I thought that's what they were building up to, is something with Lottie. And then when the cards drawing stuff happened, I said, no, this is going to go horribly wrong and somebody else is going to die that they weren't planning on. That's what I thought was going to end up happening initially. But yeah, so that's just the way I think that's an interesting theory. And I'm sure, I mean, but see, that brings me to the question of, does everyone here believe that the wilderness is a thing, or is it a
I
psychosis?
don't. I don't. I think it's just something that they're putting responsibility onto so that they don't have to take responsibility themselves. But what I do like is that at least until this point, the show hasn't taken a side on this, where I would much rather it remain vague than a confirmation of a supernatural element, because I would hate that so much. Like we've talked about before, how like I feel like it would just make a lot on this show kind of silly, and it would just deflate a lot of what's happening in the show. I'm happy to keep it vague because that works, but I don't think that there is a cosmic it. Like I think that these are just traumatized girls who have to do something to survive, but don't want to take ownership of what they have to do to survive. And I think that that's part of why they uh they have Lottie as their leader, because who better than somebody who is clearly mentally ill to carry this burden for them. And that's something that it's problematic, but it's also, I think, makes sense for the story.
No, I think that completely makes sense for the
Mhm.
story. Yeah. I mean, and it makes sense for the real world, frankly.
It
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
does. I mean, like, how many times have people been locked up for supposed lunacy or for any number of things, and people have taken out the whatever's going on in the world on defenseless people who are disabled in some way, particularly mentally disabled. People being accused of all sorts of things and being institutionalized or worse because they're mentally ill. And it's like, oh, the mentally ill people are the ones who are holding us down and we're doing it now with gun violence. It's like, clearly gun violence is the problem here is guns, not the mentally ill. But people are quick to demonize the mentally ill as being the cause of these problems. So in a smaller microcosm of this in this show, putting the burden of talking to this entity on Lottie absolves them of any responsibility, because not only is it some supernatural entity guiding their decisions, it's also whatever Lottie says. And if Lottie is wrong, that's on Lottie. It's not on us.
That's a really good point.
Mhm.
And it's very much what like teenage girls would do in a hopeless situation.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of Lottie initially almost is like, it's not like she wants it, but she's not shying away from it either. This kind of leadership role type, or the one that communes with the wilderness. Um, I I do kind of think that there's like in it. I kind of want there to be, but I want it. I like that they're keeping it vague and that the show hasn't taken sides yet. Because I think that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes you start to question reality and everything you're seeing that's happening in the wilderness. Um, I I think that's it just leads to a lot of fun theories, and it's like I'll be sitting there watching it, and it's like I kind of forget that there is a bit of a supernatural aspect, a little bit of like, because nothing's definitively defined. Sorry, nothing's been confirmed. um so it does kind of let you wonder a little bit, like, oh, could it be? So I think that makes it um yeah, just a lot of fun, because you kind of forget that, or at least I will kind of forget that, yes, there's this like a spooky tone to this until something batshit happens. And like, I mean, Lottie hallucinating the woman in the antlers with the veil thing as her therapist. The whole thing with her therapist, just that, all of that, because when she first is sitting down with this substitute therapist, we do not see that woman's face for at least a few scenes, a couple more times, couple more visits, I think. It's not initial. And I thought that was very suspicious, but I think everything that happens is suspicious. I don't trust this show and I love it. So I I kind of like the idea that there's maybe some weird woo shit going on, but yeah, I don't want them to like confirm or deny one way or another. Because the show does give me a little bit of like early seasons of Lost vibe of like what the fuck is going on, and always having questions and maybe getting a couple of answers, but then left with like 50 more questions. And then when they would in the later seasons, when they started to try and answer those questions, you're like, that was a dumb fucking answer. And then they drop like some other weird shit, and you're like, oh my God, what the hell's that all about? And then dumb fucking answer. So I think they can learn from that lesson and just never really give a definitive answer on anything.
Yeah, I hope they never
Same.
do. I hope they never do. And I know a lot of people would be pissed about that, but I would rather not know for sure, because I think it's better to have people think it one way and the other way. But
and then if you look at it, from a legacy perspective, it's better to have a legacy of mystery, of leaving you wondering, than to give you a really unsatisfying answer. And I think ideally this show should not go longer than season 3 or 4. It should not be like, tons and tons of seasons. I love the show. I could live with the show forever. But I think that the longer you extend it, the more you have to do explaining, and the more you have to add backstory and add all of this and all of that. Yeah. And I think that would just ruin so much of what makes the show so special, and there are ways to, hey, how about write new shows? Put on other shows. I know. It's a controversial and weird
that is a hot take.
It is a hot take. Like, prepare your fans here, because it's going to get hotter. I think that we should give more vehicles for women to have these complex personalities and stories, instead of just trying to cram it all into one show. I know.
Why, Carla?
This is just wow. I know.
Wow.
Why would we ever do that?
Please,
why indeed? This is just me being controversial for the sake of it.
Think about the men, Carla.
Yeah, their feelings.
Haven't they suffered enough? The poor men.
Think about all the Jeffs out there that can't have
Jeffs. Oh, yeah, I like Jeff. He's a dweeb, but he's an adorable dweeb, and he really actually sold it. Season 1 with the there's no book club. I was like, you are not this intense. You adorable little moron.
And I loved it that he actually wasn't cheating on her. I want to say that. I mean, the fact that he wasn't actually cheating on her was so awesome to see.
It was a breath of fresh air. Because in season 1, he has that moment with Jackie's parents where he gets up and he's defending Shauna, and he is like, I love this woman, and all of these things Jackie and I had just wasn't going to work out, blah, blah, blah. And at the time, I'm like, that was a really convincing speech for someone who's cheating on his wife. And then I was like, but we don't. And then I started questioning, and I was like, but we don't know that he is. Me just assuming, because I was like, we only saw Jeff and that woman leaving the hotel, and they weren't all snuggly wuggly. They were just walking out like two people leaving a building. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, you sons of bitches, you played my
misdirection.
Yeah. And
I loved it.
You were like, when you saw the younger Jeff, you were like, oh, he's just interested in her for sex. But then this season, they have the scene where he's writing, he sends her that note in class, and you can tell she's like, why are you doing this to me when Jackie?
Because he's not very bright.
No.
He's still a dweeb.
Oh my God. But the closest similar show to this, in a sense, is Good Girls, right? Good Girls, complicated women doing not great things for complicated reasons. And the husband, like the main husband in that show, does cheat on his wife. And that's part of, what kicks things off. So that is just like a trope. Like the infidelity of the husband. And I really like that they don't do this. Jeff is a sweet, dumb guy.
Sweet dumb.
He is a blockhead, but a lovely one.
He tried to blackmail his wife and her friend.
He tried to take responsibility for the murder of Adam Martin.
Oh, that was so
the
sweet.
sweetest but just most ridiculous move ever.
Okay. We need to talk about that moment because that I was not expecting. I wasn't expecting to lose Kevin like that. I was like, this is a
Oh, I
joke.
know.
This is a prank, right? Like I was like, he's not even like not like it just felt so unsatisfying. Like
No,
it's
I
not so much that we
agree.
lost Kevin, but how we lost him. I was like, wait, what the fuck just happened? It just was so fast. And it's like, yeah, no, I didn't trust Frodo, and it's fine. He's still adorable.
He's
But
so creepy. Oh my
it's
God,
so
he's
creepy.
so
But I love
He's so
I love
good at
Elijah
it.
Wood.
He's really
He
good
is
at it.
so good
You
at
can
it.
tell he's
And
having a blast.
yes, and oh my God, I would have so preferred it if it had been the other detective because I hate that
Oh
guy with a
God, he's
passion,
shit.
like
So
Scaramouche or whatever
gross.
his name is. I
Mm-hmm.
hate him
So
so much.
sleazy,
Oh,
gross, and just
he's
Yeah.
the worst.
disgusting.
And like his whole confrontation in the woods with Callie, just oh, he just
He's
oh, I
just
hate
icky and
him.
gross, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's also like one of the deputies in Stranger Things, and he's kind of a
Oh, yeah,
doofus
he
in
is.
that. And so I like him. I like him there because he's a doofus, and he's just not a
He's
douchey piece of shit.
and a predator type guy
Yes.
too. I mean, come on.
In this too, doesn't he look like a predator?
That's what I
Mhm.
mean. Is in this.
Oh, okay.
Not in
Okay. Because
Stranger
I haven't seen Stranger
Things.
Things, so I don't know. So I'm like, is he a predator there too? Because
No.
that sounds
No,
like a trend. That sounds like a pattern. I think we should look into this because that sounds really creepy to me.
no, he's like a distant relative of Teddy from Dexter, the reboot season.
Oh, Teddy.
Yep.
Oh my God,
Teddy. Forgot about Teddy. And also related would be, I don't know if you both have seen Cocaine Bear, but the deputy, the paramedic in Cocaine Bear, they all are in the same tribe.
They're
You'll
all
know when you
cousins.
see it.
They're all related.
It's a family that decided to go into public service in one way or another.
And
They're
be
all
bad
the
at it
same.
one way or another.
Yeah.
That's very true. Well, I can't get to Natalie yet. I just can't do it yet. Seriously.
So grab
I'm
yourself
not-
a
I'm not
bourbon like I'm doing.
accepting of that. I'm glad that we get young Natalie still because
Yeah.
Mhm.
we will get that. But so instead of that, I want to know. I want to know. So, how long do you think Coach has until Coach is murdered and eaten by the girls?
Not
Oh
long.
man, that's a question mark. That's a question mark because
I don't think long.
I
think
don't know.
once
And, okay,
they
so
find,
I'm surprised he
my
lived.
hot take here, my hot take is that I don't think that Coach was necessarily the one who set the fire.
Oh,
Because for one thing, let's look at the fact that Kristen's body has not been found. I'm not saying that she miraculously got up and walked away, but like, where's her body? No. But like, is there somebody else out there? Did somebody else out there go out there and collect the body? You know what I mean? Like, is somebody out there interacting with the alter Thaisa person? Was there somebody out there helping to keep Javi alive all that time? Like, what is going on out there? Because I don't think I really okay. Look, there's too much time that happens between when the torches pass from Lottie to Natalie, which I want to talk more about. There's a lot of time that
I
transpires
just
between that.
put the Natalie stuff aside for a minute because of
Yeah, no, that's why I'm skipping it. Yes, I want to talk about it, but I'm obviously skipping it, Erin. It's gonna be okay. So there's a lot of time between that scene and then when they all go to sleep, and then when Sean is up, writing her jealousy and rage into her journal, and then the smoke and everything. So I don't think that it's necessarily Coach. I'm not saying that it's definitely not, but I'm saying that there's a possibility that it's not. And like that fills me with intrigue. Like I'm like, okay, could it be somebody else?
maybe.
I mean, I want it to be Coach.
I mean, they really set it up to be Coach, right? Like he's watching through
with
the
him going out
window,
there
just
with the
like, what the
matches.
fuck? And looking kind of like angry, annoyed, disappointed at young Natalie during that whole passing of the torch scene and everything. And so yeah, they really kind of set it up where you're like, it's totally Coach. He did it. They're gonna find his little hidey hole and then kill him, and then that's where they're gonna live and survive. But there is still the woman that Javi mentions briefly after he comes back,
Yeah.
and she didn't want me to or something, or she said no. And there was the one article that one of you shared where one of the theories was that maybe it's Thais's altar that he's been communicating with, and possibly, but I don't think so. But it's
Like
a
I said,
possibility.
not definite, but
Yeah.
it's an intriguing possibility to me. And I think like what Coach has been through so much, like this whole season, he's been in his own hell.
Yeah.
Like his whole hallucinations of Paul, which by the way, I just can't over the fact that Sebastian Rain from Schmidt's Creek is out here like being a good boyfriend because he was so awful to David that I'm just like, you bastard. You think I'm gonna take you seriously now as a good boyfriend? Oh, how dare you?
Well, it is a
But anyway.
hallucination.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe he's just
Yeah.
imagining him as a good boyfriend. Maybe he was
Mhm.
as awful to him as he was to David. Anyway, but yeah, he's gone through that. He almost threw himself off a cliff. He's had to witness these people that he was supposed to be in charge of. He's supposed to be the adult in the room, and he can't do anything to save them, to protect them, to keep them from doing harm. And I mean, just that reason alone, that he doesn't want them hunting each other and hurting each other. I don't think that he would hurt them. That doesn't mean that they won't get killed, that he won't get killed by them, because like it's not like they're being very rational right now.
Yeah. Hi, what is from cast? I don't know which one of you is on, but hi. So they are saying Coach Ben has had his ups and downs, but he got his crap together in the end. He froze as an adult. Then he found purpose after he changed. Hi, Alex. That's actually true. All of that stuff started after he
Well, yeah, you always shave the depression beard and get the depression, the post-depression haircut. So yeah.
Right.
That is kind of true. That is kind of true. Yeah. I don't know. I the only reason I want Coach to be the one who did it is because Burn Baby Burn is because it's like the first like active thing other than shaving his beard that he has done this entire time. So it's like he's like, I'm gonna save all of you and rescue you from yourselves and burn you all. And maybe he was hoping he'd come back and they'd all be burned and then he would eat them. No, I don't think he would do that, but
But
I still don't think
in this show.
He's not going to survive though.
Maybe he was thinking they just don't understand. It's so much more efficient if you do it in bulk.
Hence Costco's.
Misty, it's interesting to me with Misty with Coach that Misty was like basically stopped him from jumping off that cliff. That was really interesting to me just because you wouldn't. Fergie's trying to get in some of her thoughts here, but
She has thoughts, I'm sure.
she loves Misty. That's like her. But that was interesting to me just because you don't I don't know, Misty, it was like a little moment of Misty having like, it was all about Misty still, but still having a little bit of a moment of like grief and loss, and it was kind of it was interesting, although she was still Misty, so it was still all about her because
right.
Yeah.
Well, with Misty loves the people that she loves, and she will do anything she can to protect those people, and everybody else is expendable. Which, again, I'm not saying that she's right about anything, or especially the way that she goes about things, but I think that that's something that is understandable. That she forms certain attachments to certain people for whatever the reason may be, and she will do anything to keep them safe. other than try to kind of like poison them and then accidentally make them all hallucinate and then make a teenage boy run away on high on
Destroy
mushrooms.
the radio.
Yeah, little things like
Yes.
that.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, the person Misty loves the most is herself. So she's protecting herself by keeping them all there at her mercy because she's the only one who can help Shauna deliver. She's the one that they go to whenever anybody's injured. You need a lot of different things to keep a group like that is stranded alive and safe. You definitely need a medic of some kind, and she's the closest thing that they have to it. So she sees herself as a god of sorts. And again, like the whole idea that I mentioned before, that she thinks that she's the only one with the right opinion, and she just has to convince other people to go along with it, hence the manipulation. But yeah, like, it makes total sense that she tries to save Ben because she cares about him. She doesn't want him to die. It's not convenient to her.
Yeah. So we have all had one in our lives, but they just don't kill their friends.
I mean, generally that's how that works. You have your ride or die friends, minus the murder, minus the actual die part.
This right here too, which is part of the reason why she keeps doing the things she's doing, because she's important in the forest, but not outside of the forest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Misty, I mean, the performances once again from everybody are incredible because Misty is pretty amazing. And even though, I mean, as far as like the performances, I don't like Misty, and I know it wasn't something she was planning, but okay, we can talk about it.
Okay, let's get into it.
All right, here we go.
Natalie. So once again, Natalie is my favorite character. So Natalie dying, the adult Natalie. Okay, I'll of course go last because I can't.
Because you need time to compose yourself. I understand. Well, okay. So here's what I'm going to say about Natalie. Okay, she found peace at Lottie's cult, right? And that peace was shattered when Misty shows up. She purposely, she's been keeping Misty at bay this whole time because as much as Misty believes that Natalie is her soulmate friend and that, like, that they're meant to be besties forever, Natalie, she just doesn't see it. It's not for her. And also, like, their involvement with the Adam Martin thing, she just wants to get away from it all. She doesn't want to deal with so much death that she has caused, at least as she sees it herself, because she blames herself for Javi's death and for Travis's death. Now, those two, whatever else may happen in the future, those two are deaths that she did not cause. Whatever she may believe, and she, I think she will never admit to herself that even if she had lunged after Javi's hand and tried to rescue him, they never would have allowed that. The rest of them would have beaten her off and let him drown, exactly like they did. She was not responsible for those, but she's never going to get over them. And last season, at the end, we found her, putting a gun to her head. So going to Lottie's, she's getting peace from the last person she expected, from her rival, really, because that's what they are in the wilderness. They're rivals, whether they want to be or not. You have Lottie's mysticism versus Natalie's practicality, and I think that once she's there and she goes through what she goes through with Lisa and with Lisa's parents and all of this stuff, she is, I think, on the verge of forgiveness of herself. She is about to let things go and to just really center herself. And then in comes this whole group and gets in the way of that. And that just, it's down to bad timing, and again, Misty getting in the way of things. And in this case, it's Misty's manipulativeness again. This whole thing where she thinks she knows what's best for Natalie, despite Natalie begging her to leave her alone. She doesn't care. She's like, Natalie doesn't know what she's talking about. but now you have everybody there. They're all rehashing what they've gone through, what they were put through, and she's confronted with the very thing she's running from. So there's no escape from her guilt. There's regardless of whether she should feel guilty or not, there's no escape from it. Um, and she knew full well what might happen to her when she ran to protect Lisa, but she can't have another innocent person die on her watch. She just will not allow it. And it it makes sense that somebody from the core group has to die. And to me, it makes sense that it was Natalie, only because she is the one who sought redemption the hardest. She was the one who most desperately needed the respite. And she was going to get it one way or the other. And she didn't manage to get it her way at the end of last season. She didn't manage to get it Lottie's way this season. And in a way, it was like, let's just be done with this, but because she sees what Misty's about to do. She has no illusions about what's going to happen. She knows that she's taking one for Lisa. And I think that's partly because she's saving her younger self through saving Lisa. Because Lisa hasn't had to go through the things that she's gone through. Yeah, Lisa has had a messed up life. She has a very hard time on her own. But Natalie sees in Lisa a chance to save a version of herself. And so she goes for it. And it doesn't mean that she's not scared, because clearly she is. You see in that scene on that airplane where she's still kind of clinging to that idea of like, oh God, what am I doing here? And then everybody around her is, the people that she's seeing Coffee, she's seeing her younger self, she's seeing Lottie, telling her it's okay, let go, it's going to be fine. And so she succumbs because she finally feels at peace. And it's devastating and it's tragic. And it's the only thing that makes sense, as awful as it is, because she was such a great character. Juliette Lewis, oh my God, absolutely amazing in this role. Absolutely amazing. Like, such talent that woman has. And she, she can play so many different facets of emotion so beautifully. Like in the newer Queer as Folk, when she plays the mom, and she just has this joie de vivre that is so beautiful to witness. And this with Natalie, the opposite, where she's a woman struggling to stay afloat and only staying afloat kind of against her will. So it is absolutely heartbreaking. The way that they filmed it was beautiful. The music that they put to it was just so perfect for that moment. And the juxtaposition of that scene with Natalie being crowned as the new leader it just causes your mind to do like all of these flips, like, oh, but she's alive here and now she's dead, like, what? It's an amazing scene, and I will miss seeing Juliette Lewis on every single episode to the degree that she was in all of these other episodes. But I think it was the right call, as hard as it was to watch.
Yeah, that makes sense. Whatever. Shut up, Carla. It was
So weird, I
okay.
get that a lot.
So when I started this episode, because season 1 was 10 episodes. So I went into the finale thinking it was the penultimate. So it was literally like a couple of days and I start seeing things like, oh, the finale. And I'm like, did everyone else get a different episode than I did? So yeah. So once that all kind of clicked, I was like, because I'm thinking like, all right, either way, was not expecting it. Unexpected death number 2, where I was like, what the fuck is happening here? What is going on? I'm still kind of, I think, processing just the fact that we lost Natalie, because loved her. Juliette Lewis, yes, was amazing. Both seasons. And I loved seeing Natalie's arc and growth and kind of coming to a bit of that acceptance, forgiveness, getting closer to it. And I mean, you see it with her time staying at the cult, because she's still in her clothes for those first few days. Those leather leggings for a couple of days. I'm like, that alone I would have been out of those so fast.
I know, man.
Everything else looks comfy as hell, but she's slowly, like it's like a little shawl or something, and a little bit more purple, and then maybe like a shirt or some pants or whatever, until she is all in purple. And I thought that was just a great way visually and with her wardrobe to show where she was, where she was going, and her, that whole kind of journey. And then when they all have their moment and they're all sitting around and drinking, I was so proud of her that she didn't indulge as well. So everyone's getting hammered and she's still able to have a good time and kind of enjoy that little happy little moment that they all had. And then and then everything happened. It's like, with everything going on in the woods in that moment, with Callie running around and douchebag cop running around, and Frodo and Jeff somewhere over near the Shire. I don't fucking know. But I was like, something terrible is going to happen. I was worried maybe it was going to be like someone was going to be accidentally shot. And I thought maybe I was worried maybe it was like Callie or just some other, because there were so many people there. So then when it ended up being Natalie because of Misty by accident, again, I sat up and I was like, what? No, that's not, she's not dead. That's just like, she's knocked out, right? That's just something to like knock her out. She wasn't actually gonna like, right? And no. And I loved the scene with her on the airplane and seeing young Javi, and well, only Javi, but Javi, and then her young self, and then young Lottie, which I thought was kind of interesting. And no Travis, even a young Travis. These are the people that either she, kind of chose to see in her final moments, or something showed her in the final moments. But I thought it was interesting that young Lottie said, it's not scary or it's not mean. It's just hungry. And I'm like, that might be worse. Cause it's like, now it felt like Natalie, like, okay, now I'm feeding myself to it. I don't know. I was just like, I don't think that's better. And so, yeah, I'm not ready to give up Juliette Lewis as a full-time cast member. I'm kind of hoping we might still see little glimpses of her here and there, but with the way this isn't Lost, so they're not doing sideway time shifts and bullshit like that. So I'm thinking maybe not. If we do, it'll be really, no, I don't think we will, which is a bummer. But that was, like I said, still kind of processing that. Was not expecting it. Just was a little bit in denial for a couple of days. But it does make sense. We would have to lose someone from the main cast, and her character makes the most sense. I agree with Carla.
I'm sorry for being so right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sadly does make sense. It's really painful to me. It was really hard to watch. It was beautiful at the same time, and I did like the passing of the torch scene. I do think that was what I liked about that, even though there's a part of me that's like, oh wait, so is she gonna turn really, really, really creepy, weird, bad in the next season with having that power? It'll be interesting to watch that. But what I thought was beautiful about that scene was Natalie is someone who really like hates herself so much, and did as a teenager, and grew up in a very abusive environment, and and all of that, and all this trauma she already had before even getting there. And here she was being lauded with all this love and affection. And, you can see that Misty probably when she laughed and thought it was so cute the way that Misty greeted her, Misty's probably, see, that means we're best friends. Uh, but in Natalie's mind, she's like, oh my gosh, I actually could be something important and people could look up to me and I could just not be just the loser who lives in a trailer park kind of thing. And so it was kind of beautiful to see that juxtaposed to her dying. And yeah, Juliette Lewis is fantastic. Both of the actors are, but yeah, Juliette Lewis is fantastic. Go read her Instagram post where she talks about this, and then also go read Melanie Linsky's post about her too, which was really beautiful as well. And then Christina Ritchie did one too. So yeah, go read those, and you'll see how everybody's just like in awe of her as a person, as an actress. And she's also a musician too, if people don't know that. She's a singer as well. And I do want to point out what I also think is important about her having that the death, the way she has it, is in a way she's having a hero's death because she's saving Lisa. So she's having a hero's death. And in a way, I think that's the best way for her to die because she has so much guilt. Most of it unfounded. We don't know yet what she did, but all of the stuff we'll see in season three as a leader. But she has this unfounded guilt. And so to be able to save, like you said, Carla, the younger version of her. And also it's important to point out that the actress that plays Lisa is Nicole Maines, who is a trans actress. It's very important also to point that out because she doesn't die and she's the trans actress. So I think that's also, and I mean, amazing representation to have in the show. So wanted to point that out because I thought that was also important to not have where it be the trans actor you have on the show, we're going to have them die, is also another harmful trope and harmful stereotype. And you also could see with Lisa, there was that heartbreak with Lisa where she's like, Natalie is this person that I'm trusting. And Natalie's like, you've got to leave. I don't want you to get hurt. And feeling like she got betrayed by Natalie. And then to be saved by Natalie, I think will help Lisa, hopefully in the long run, deal with that. Hopefully she won't end up blaming herself, but hopefully that'll help her deal with that trauma of feeling like, oh, another person that I look up to is going to let me down. But it's going to be really interesting to watch next season and see Natalie as a leader and see what that looks like and what she does, and if she becomes really power hungry or how that looks will be interesting. And
or hungry.
yeah, because they're really gonna have to eat now that they don't have a cabin to be in. They're not gonna have any warmth. They're gonna need the skin to match.
What Buffalo Bill on that?
Aaron, you were there.
I'm sorry. I don't know. Well, Shauna did say she knows how to skin when he skins.
Oh God,
that is true.
Anyway, well, for time wise, because I know there's a bunch we didn't get to, and I do apologize, but for time wise, I want to just end with just asking each of you.
No, we cannot go to the end because I have something for you.
Oh yeah, that's right. You had. Sorry, go ahead.
I have a treat for you that, depending on how much you value your hearing, you may or may not enjoy.
I'm so excited.
This was inspired by Misty.
Oh my God.
Are you ready?
Oh my God, yes.
You see, my problem is this, and also that there's actually a whole list. I try fixing problems, but these dead bodies just get in the way. And to lose all my besties, well, that's just what happens, I guess. Oh, baby, oops, I did it again. I killed my best friend by pure accident. Oh man, I'm sorry. Oops. Now I can only hope they won't lock me up. They'll find me innocent.
That was amazing.
Thank you,
I love
Carla.
it. Oh, I love it when you sing. I was so hoping that's what it was going to be. It was a little ditty.
And it was.
Well, thank you. I think that's a better way to just end there because
Hi.
no, you can't top that, is what I mean. So thank you for that, Carla. And we will, like I said, coming up in July, I believe that's when I put it on there. We will be talking about Yellowjackets in depth. And Carla and Jen are going to be back for that one. So we'll be talking about both seasons. So yes, and then we can talk about Natalie some more. And everybody, of course. Sorry, my hair, I just tangled right there. Sorry.
You're not just flirting with me because of my amazing singing. I get it. Okay.
That's what
Oh my
I
God,
thought. I thought she
Carla.
was like, oh my God.
But I do want to know, Carla, where can everybody find Bedwetter Behead and you?
Well, you can find Bedwetter Behead wherever you get your podcasts and my podcasts and everybody's podcast. You can also find our online presence on Twitter, where I sometimes remember that we have an account and should post there at Bedwet Pod. On Instagram at bed.wed.behead.pod. On the other one, the thingy with the videos and the TikTok at Bedwet Behead Pod.
I was like, LinkedIn?
Yes.
No, that's not
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
We don't know her. And you can find me and my art and my musings on Instagram at Carla Temis or my website, carlatemis.com. That's CarlaTemis.com.
I don't mean to wag my finger at you like you're doing something, but that's what I decided to do with your
It's more
website
like
this time. I'm going to your website.
Little ragtime dance.
To your website. Remember the time you did say you had a LinkedIn? One time
I did do that. I was trying to say Instagram, and
Yep.
for some reason I went to LinkedIn. I'm like, why?
Wow.
It would be funny if you did have a LinkedIn and that was the only place you were active right now.
Right? Much like the wilderness, I am a mystery.
So, Jen, my podcast brain twin, where can they find my streaming bubble?
Well, they can find the podcast on just about any podcast player near them, like, those ones, and not the other one, Pandora.
I love you,
and-
Pandora.
Fucking, we're in the biggest fight, Pandora. Put your ass back in the box. So you can follow me on Twitter at Streaming Bubble, no my and that, and on Facebook and Instagram as My Streaming Bubble. I'm also on the place with the videos, TikTok. I did open it the other day and y'all sent me some stuff and I was like, that looks like a lot, and I closed it.
That's
I
probably
do that
me.
sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's 18. I got to back to you later.
Listen, okay, consider yourselves lucky that you're not Meg.
Yeah, I think I had some from Carla. I think from Aaron, Meg. I think maybe a couple from Susie. But either way, So yeah, I'm still there too. Anyways, I'm not on LinkedIn. Sorry.
Sorry. That is where most people find their podcasts. Actually, that'll probably be the next trend. That's where people find
God.
their podcast now. Is LinkedIn. Well, and before I say where you can find me, and also if you're wondering, Pandora is our second most listened to platform. I'm sorry, Jen. I always have to.
And Pandora has rejected my application twice.
Well, for the podcast you and I are going to do, they probably won't because they'll see my name and they'll go, "Oh, Aaron's on that one." That's
I want partner.
and then my stream bubble will end up on Pandora. But So Jen and I are starting a podcast and we need your help. So we are podcast brain twins. So we're starting one to test how how much of brain twins we really are, how accurate that is. It's a version of like the Newlywed Game. We play it with films, test each other out, see if we know each other's tastes or not. And we need your help coming up with a name. So if you go to either one of our Twitter accounts, once again, at Streaming Bubble for Jen, at Fandom Thing, no, it's in that one, no, my and Jen's. You can find our polls there and you can vote twice for the one you like. Right now, though, at least on my poll, I don't know for you, Jen, but right now on my poll, to twin or not to twin is the one winning right now. And you can tell us too, because we did have some feedback saying if you don't have brain twin in it, people are going to think it's a podcast about actual twins. So if so, we can also do a spin on the to twin or not to twin and do to brain twin or not to twin. I don't know.
Well, I was like, maybe we can throw a little asterisk next to the twin and then like not actually twins.
Something like that. Yeah. But it's going to be up until next Tuesday. So you have a little bit to vote for that. I'm sure we'll be retweeting it constantly. It's pinned on
Mine
the
too.
podcast. Yeah, and on Jen's. So we are going to be starting that in July. So I'm excited. We have enough movies on our spreadsheet to have this go for years and years and years. So you're going to want to tune in. It is just going to be a monthly podcast. So it's not going to be a weekly thing because Jen and I don't have time for that. So yes. But like like it's a fandom thing on Facebook at facebook.com/it's a fandom thing pod, on Twitter at fandom thing pod. No, it's in that one. On Instagram at it's a fandom thing pod. On the ticks of the talks at It's a Fandom Thing Pod. On YouTube, well, you're on YouTube right now, so hit the follow and subscribe. Subscribe, turn those notifications on, all that stuff. I'm not down with the YouTube.
I don't know where the buttons are, but
I know they're
discover
somewhere.
all of them.
Yes. And you can see on our YouTube, we've had some interviews lately from the From cast, from the From cast. I've never said from so many times in my life. But they're all wonderful, beautiful human beings. They really are. Really, I really enjoyed speaking with all of them. And then we have a bunch of great interviews coming up for you. I just want to quickly just go over them if my panelists are okay. If I just list these.
Just remember, you don't have to edit this.
I know. That's why I do this, because I'm like, I don't have to edit it. And I look all off, but that's because I don't have the other light on. So it does. So we covered Dazed and Confused last year. And the actor who played Pinkford on Dazed and Confused, Sean Andrews, he has his debut album coming out. And I spoke with him. And I want to say, I have never ever interviewed anyone like this before. And that's not a bad thing. Went in, this is one of those where I went in with a certain set of expectations and totally different, like a completely hippie, down to earth. Like every time I would ask him a question about something, he'd be like, well, first I have to give a shout out to the people who made this possible for me, to this person, that person. I mean, when he was talking about Dazed and Confused, he's like the casting director and knew the and frankly, that doesn't always happen. So it was a really, really fun conversation. I was very excited that he was having as much fun talking to me as I was having talking to him. So it's very interesting. His love for music is like my love for music. So I loved being able to talk about music. Haven't ever had to do that in an interview. So that was fun. So that will be dropping probably next week. I'm not positive on the time. But I'm going to try this one I haven't done yet, but I'm interviewing the director of a documentary that I can't talk about completely, but you'll hear about it on next week's show. And it's called Americon, and it's all about capitalism. And yeah, it's fantastic, infuriating, and everybody needs to watch this documentary. But I'll be speaking with the director, Sean Claffey. I don't know, it's a Sean week for me.
It's a Sean
then
thing.
yeah. and I realized I gotta tell you something, Carla, and then I spoke with Jenny Stiven, who is like, I didn't know this. She does like this job of, I'm not gonna be able to explain it very well. She explains it well, where it's like digital marketing, and she works with fandoms directly. And so she works with studios, and she's like, we've got to engage the fans this way. Let's work with fans. So she's bringing fans and IPs and stuff together. And a lot of it is sci-fi fantasy. She's a geek first, is how she kind of describes herself. And we talk about how so many people find it hard to believe that women are fans of things. So
We're the biggest fans of things. What the
Like,
fuck?
seriously.
exactly. So we talked about that. She's really, I really liked talking with her. So it's really interesting. And I'm not positive on the date of that one. I don't know if all three of these will be next week, but these will be coming up. So yep. So that is all I have for right now. So thank you to Carla. Thank you to Jen. Thank you to Alex. Thank you to anyone else who tunes in later. Thank you so much. And until next time, the Wild Women of Podcasting will return. When Dexter comes back,
I'm out.
It's not going to happen. I'm not going to be able to rope him into that one. Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.